When that chute opens, all my pain, all that emptiness just goes away.
What's going on, everybody? It's Ted again with the Countdown to the Geeks, and we have another very special interview for you guys. The writer, star, and director of the brand new drama film Ride, Jake Allen. How's it going, sir?
I'm doing good. Thank you for having me.
Wow, what a tremendous movie. I also appreciate that this is a very rugged, grounded, raw, and sometimes visceral
Yep.
story that is inspired by my home state, the great state of Texas. Tell us, I know it was a long journey for you. I've read a little bit about the background of this picture, but tell us about the long inspiration that led to this movie coming about.
Yeah, man. I mean, wrote the script and been trying to make this movie for 8 years, but I am from Texas as well and grew up, around the cowboy way of life and about going to rodeos. And so I, have had this story in my heart my entire life. I grew up playing football, and so Friday Night Lights was my favorite movie. And I always thought, man, where's the Friday Night Lights of rodeo? It's the same, very similar world in terms of it's a beautiful sport, but it's also a beautiful way of life that rodeo represents. And why aren't there movies about that world and about those people in that community? And in particularly right now in the world, what a interesting time to tell a modern story, a modern Western. That's really what interests me is these modern Westerns.
It's fantastic, and you yourself, your character is just an incredible one, Peter, who is an ex-convict trying to get reacclimated into society, but it's not easy. He's a former drug addict. He's had trouble with the law, not to mention his mother's the sheriff of the town. um, but it's a struggle, and you feel and you see that struggle and all the things that he kind of comes up against. Sometimes it's self-inflicted,
Yeah.
but it's not easy. Why was it important for you to tell the journey of someone kind of getting reacclimated to society, dealing with the struggles that he had?
I love Peter so much, by the way. I really love him, and I don't mind saying that. I hope it doesn't sound
Doesn't sound
cocky or
anything. It's
whatever.
great.
I love him. Um, and I love him because yes, he's a cowboy and he's a bull rider and he stands for that way of life. But even more than that, what makes me so proud of this character is that above these kind of iconic cowboy things that he is or stands for, he is, like you said, just an addict. And you can have a big dark cowboy hat on and a gold buckle and the cool chaps and whatever, but an addict is an addict. And at the end of the day, you're just a dude that needs to go into AA and talk to group.
Yeah.
Uh, and I think that's what made him so hopefully compelling, at least for me, was that, above all, behind all that cowboy stuff was just a kid um, trying to find his road to redemption, as simple as that. And I think especially, again, like I said, this movie took 8 years to make. And during those 8 years, COVID happened and a lot of different things happened in my life that made me feel pretty lonely. And those real life elements that were hitting my life started to sift their way into Peter and into this story. And so I really hope that audiences can connect with him, whether they're a cowboy, whether they're from Texas or not. We've all felt lonely in our life. And if you're saying you haven't, you're probably in a moment of loneliness. Um, and so I really hope and believe that's what people will connect with Peter the most, beyond the rodeo world.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the key word and all that was redemption. You really want there to be redemption for this character. Whether he gets it or not, you folks at home are gonna have to watch it.
Yeah.
Um, it's a fantastic story that's supported with an amazing cast. I love so many of these individuals, especially Forey. Anything Forey is in, my goodness, he has
Yeah.
such he's such a gritty personality, but he has also this like constant vulnerability in his voice and his mannerisms. Tell us about Forey, who plays your grandfather in this movie.
Yeah, he brings so much, of course it's easy to talk about the authenticity that he brings. He's a cowboy. The photos that we show a bunch of rodeo photos at the beginning of the movie, and those aren't stock photos. Those aren't things that you buy for a movie or whatever. Those aren't props. Those are photos from Forey J. Smith's life. Those are photos from C. Thomas Howell's life. So of course they brought massive amount of authenticity to the roles, but both of them and Forey brought just so much heart to the roles as well. Again, talking about Peter kind of, yes, being this hard cowboy, but who's just an addicted kid at the end of the day. What I loved about Forey and C. Thomas is they brought a vulnerability to the cowboy that they didn't have to. They did not come to this movie and just say, okay, let's make the cowboy look as badass as possible, and let's honor the cowboy way, and pat ourselves on the back. Instead, we were like, okay, yeah, sure, we're telling a movie about three generations of bull riders, but we're also telling a story about three generations of alcoholics. And we're also telling a story about, pressure that fathers can put on sons in trying to make them good men. And that can come at a cost. And that's a lot of
Sure.
what led Peter to be who he is this kind of pressure that is insurmountable. There's a scene where he's in the back of the locker room. His ribs are all beaten up, and he's trying to make that last ride and win the rodeo. And he just looks up and, sees his dad's old rodeo photos that have been framed on the wall. And it's like, how do you live up to a Holy Ghost?
Yeah.
Uh, and again, whether you're a cowboy or a bull rider or not, most men feel that way about their dads.
Oh yeah. No, 100% right. You are a director in this film for the very first time. Tell us about that transition. Were you ever feeling overwhelmed? Did you feel you were ready for it? How easy did the cast make it on you? These are all a list of, vets and professionals.
Yeah.
How easy did they make your job?
You know, they certainly made it challenging, and then they're not coming in to do good work, they're coming in to do great work. So for sure they challenged me, but it only made me look better, you know?
Yeah,
It's like good. I would have been way more nervous had they come in and been like, yeah, whatever. Where do you want me to stand? That's scary territory,
sure.
particularly when you get at veteran actors who show up and are just like, all right, cool. What are my lines? Can I get some sides? It's like, oh no, that's scary.
Yeah,
Having someone say, hey, come here, I want to talk about this scene. I want to see how we can make it better. That's a good place to be in. And yeah, you better have your SHIT together to be able to answer the questions that they're going to bring. But I'm not a very technically sound director. I don't know lenses and lights and whatever, but I knew this story and I knew that I loved it. And originally, I wasn't going to direct this film. It's not how you would draw it up to act in the first movie that you're going to direct. I don't know that I would necessarily suggest it, but what I would suggest to any director or any first time director is to pick a story that you freaking love, because it's going to be hard no matter what. Whether you get actors to challenge you or not. Making a movie's hard, period. But if you have a story that you love, that's all you need. I mean, it's truly all you need. A story that you're willing to work your butt off for. And that was this for me. That was the cowboy hat.
I can't think of any better advice than that. Couple of last questions for you. The music, I was so intrigued by the music because it's very ethereal. It sort of sets a different tone than this rugged, sort of, small Texas town that we're seeing. Those who ride with giants, I am not familiar with them, but tell us how or why it was important to get them involved on this project.
Yeah, I mean the main character in this film, is not myself. It's not C. Thomas's character. It's not Annabeth's character. It's the world. It's this town. And when your world and your town is the main character, that composer ends up kind of being the dialogue
Yeah.
for that. They become their voice. And Those Who Ride with Giants was a band that I knew, and a guy, MJ Callahan, that I knew. from my last movie. We had bought one of his songs for No Man's Land. And I remember when I was writing Ride being like, man, I feel like this whole movie sounds like that one moment in this previous film that I did with my brother. And I was like, and we had just gotten the rights. We didn't even know him or anything like that. And I was like, I'm just gonna email him. And I did a lot of that on this movie. A lot of people will tell you that they came aboard this movie because of a very sketchy random email from from me. Um, but yeah, I showed the script with him, and he was interested in it, and we ended up having a beautiful collaborative relationship where he started writing music over a month before we even started shooting, which a lot of times on an indie, you don't even have a composer until after the movie.
Sure.
Not only have our composer on board, but for him to be making music was something just really creative, I think, and that led to some really unique, beautiful songs. I really didn't want him writing too much of the music, trying to hit a certain edit point, which ends up happening in some aspects in a movie. But I really wanted him to just read and use his own imagination and create music for scenes. And we ended up moving stuff around. He would be like, "Oh, I read this scene and it really hit me, and so I wrote this piece." And then in the edit, I would end up using it somewhere else.
Yeah.
Just became very special relationship, and I can't say enough about what he brought to the whole vibe of the film. You know what I mean? It kind of created this ethereal element around it, and we did talk about not just wanting the kind of twangy guitar for a Western. Let's be more specific than that. Let's be deeper than that. There's piano in the film, like you wouldn't necessarily, if you describe this film, you wouldn't necessarily think like, oh yeah, that'd be a great movie for some piano strikes, but I don't know, screw it. It's our movie.
It's great. It's a great juxtaposition from this very dramatic, intense story that you're telling. I just want to leave you with congrats, brother. You've done it. I think you set out on a mission and you had a goal, and I think you full out just achieved it. My congrats to you, the rest of the cast. C. Thomas Howell is great. Annabeth, she's fantastic. I've loved her ever since I saw her in The Bridge, which is
Oh
another
yeah.
very rugged Texas story. Strongly suggest you go check out Ride as soon as it drops. You're gonna love it. It's fantastic. Jake, thank you for taking the time to speak with me today. Hope you have a great rest of your day, man.
Thank you. You too.
But we're trying to do what's right no matter what it takes.
No matter how hard you fight.
I don't need help raising my daughter.
Whether you make 8 or not, the bull always chucks you. Always.